Cardano is sat in an incredibly interesting position right now. I want you to look at this Wyckoff accumulation and remember it for slightly later in the video. And I'm going to show you that right now, Cardano is in an absolutely prime position. There's also some incredible news on Cardano that's flowing out right now. And I'm going to jump into all of that in this video. As soon as you hit that like button, let's get into today's video. So guys, looking into the Cardano chart, you could be mistaken for thinking things are looking pretty bleak. We've had a huge dump towards the downside, and yet we're still continuing to have that kind of low end play around in the market. Not a lot seems to be happening, but there is massive news happening for Cardano right now. Now, first of all, I want to jump across to this tweet from Charles Hodgkinson saying that lots of noise is in the crypto market right now, but looking for the signal, Cardano is getting real adoption and growing in an ecosystem under the harshest conditions our industry knows. Like Bitcoin, this is being done in a completely decentralized way. Now, this is important. Now, I've talked about this before when we talk about Solana, and it's being battle tested right now. Okay, it's been put through its paces in a really negative market for Cardano. There's probably few worse places that it could be when you look at the news and things going on. And yet, Cardano, total value locked, is growing bigger or quicker than any other layer one out there. We can see with a total value locked of 148% since January of this year, in terms of its increase, and then you look down the list, we're actually seeing that value fall in others. We are seeing Solana and Polygon also having a good time of it as well. But it's crazy. Why is so much big money accumulating Cardano right now when the masses are being told that, Cardano is in a full-blown bear market, it's going to fall and fall and fall? Well, guys, I'll show you exactly why that is when we look at this diagram slightly later on and explain what it really means. Before we do that, let's jump across to DeFi Llama then. We can see that the total value locked currently sat $164 million. But what's important, if we look at these blue lines and green lines, blue lines, total value locked, you can see there was a high back in April of 2022 or March 2022, and then the volume spikes. It's really interesting to see that from June, you had that massive spike in activity, but you're also seeing that kind of growth carry on through here. Now, in the past, we saw this kind of peaks in growth coming at the very start of the last bull market. Something is very interesting happening for Cardano right now. And if we jump back to this Cardano chart, I want you to pay attention to this lower side of the market. Now, when you get into a bull market, or let's say before a bull market, Cardano is quite clearly not in a bull market right now, but it's about to enter one in my opinion, because if you look, you have that big plunge towards the downside. And then you enter into what is called an accumulation phase. During this period of time, big money will start to accumulate assets that they see of good value. Cardano obviously is at good value at 30 cents, when in the past it was worth $3. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work that out. What we can see, we get this very savage sell-off, capitulation phase. We then crawl and just sort of continue to plunge lower and lower. Eventually we put in this low, and then we saw Bitcoin and the rest of the market drag it out. And yet, while Bitcoin has continued to climb, we've seen Cardano dump like this. But what is really, really key is what happened at the bottom here. I want you to pay attention to where this low comes in, and this low was at 0.2414. We then get a dip below to 0.2300. And many people are in this area going, oh, it's just going to carry on lower. All this area represents, you should know, is called liquidity. Everyone who's in a long position probably puts stop losses under here. This comes down, takes out the stop losses. It enables big money to continue filling their bags. But this is a really important pattern, okay? You see the crawl down, and then you see the peak. You see another peak, and then you see this drop. Look at this now. This is the Wyckoff accumulation phase. And what you can see is we have that big plunge towards the downside. We then come up, we peak, we come back down, we peak again, and then we drop into what is called the spring, okay? So we go from here, we go up, we hit the resistance, we come back down, we come and hit the resistance again, and we come to a spring. So remember, we get that dip, we hit that first resistance, we hit the second resistance, we come back down. This, for me, is the spring in a Wyckoff accumulation pattern. And if you want to know how reliable that pattern is, this is the Bitcoin Wyckoff accumulation, where you can see it crawled down, it came back and peaked, it came up again, it peaked, it dropped, and then you had this big explosion towards the upside. In my opinion, Cardano is sat down here in the accumulation or the accumulation of long position, SM being smart money. Smart money is accumulating, in my opinion right now, Cardano. It's not just in my opinion. You can see it happening on DeFi Llama. You can see all the data. It's there to see. Cardano is being accumulated aggressively, where everyone's saying, oh, it's going to continue towards the downside because the Bitcoin versus Cardano chart is not looking that healthy. I'm going to show you what that chart's showing and point out something that Benjamin Cowan's been talking about on his channel, but perhaps has moved over without paying too much attention to this. And Benjamin Cowan, who has some phenomenal content, I'm sure you obviously know him if you are watching crypto videos, definitely worth looking into. He's got some great knowledge, has been pointing out that Cardano against Bitcoin is likely to continue down towards these lows down here. Now, we are obviously seeing a growth in Bitcoin right now, but I do think that what we can see is very key to notice and wasn't really paid too much close attention to by Benjamin Cowan on his channel. And it is this, guys. Okay, this support line, which you can see runs very strongly and has been doing so since the 22nd of July 2019, is starting to bottom out here. Now, what I would anticipate happening is that Cardano is very likely going to see a bounce in this zone, and that is in line with what we're seeing over on the Cardano US dollar chart. It's very interesting to see. Obviously, there's something you should know. This is not guaranteed. This is just what I'm seeing and what I'm paying attention to, and I want to bring you an alternative concept. Are we about to see Bitcoin having a little bit of a sideways cool off for a little bit of time? And then we're going to see a bit of growth in the large cap alts. I'm talking the likes of Cardano. If we look at Solana right now, it's very interesting as well. Because if you look at Solana versus Bitcoin, we can see something very similar has happened here. We had the capitulation. We had one bottom, we came up, we've retested an area, and now we're sort of looking like to form some form of a double bottom here. Are we about to see Solana pushing towards the upside? You know, guys, I know that many people are like, oh, it's not the bull market yet, we haven't had the halving and all these good things. I understand that that is one metric that we should pay attention to, and it does hold value, of course. But there are different metrics around that completely oppose that. And those have equal pegging, perhaps, in my opinion, to the other, like Bitcoin halving, stuff like that. Now, all we do know for sure is that right now, Cardano is cheap. It is much better value than it was perhaps this time last year. So what do we know? Well, we know that Cardano is sat in an accumulation zone. And I should point out that that accumulation zone was found by Richard Wyckoff back in the early 1900s. That pattern consistently follows Wyckoff accumulation at low ends of the market. Cardano looks like it's at the absolute bottom of that, and that has me very excited. Because if we are able to get in right now, I do think that at the bottom of that phase, what comes next is very aggressive. And if we look into the Bitcoin one, after this accumulation, you can see that it hits up very, very fast. And the reason you get that very aggressive push, guys, is what I want you to consider what is happening in these areas down here. When big money is buying, okay, they're buying in these areas. They can't do it too aggressively because you get this happen. And when you get this happen, it means that it's no longer of good value. So they eventually will wait. The news will eventually push it back down, and you get an event, something like the SEC listing Cardano as a security, that pushes it back down into this buy zone. Look at what happens the next time it gets in this buy zone. We get wicks. We start to get a interesting big couple of candles pushing out. This, for me, is the end of the accumulation zone. I think that we are going to start to push like this, and you could see Cardano doing this very, very fast. Now, obviously, again, make sure you're doing your own research. I'm not advising you to buy or sell or anything. This is why I'm buying right now, and I just wanted to share my 2 cents with you. If you don't agree with me, let me know down below in the comments, or even better, get into my free Telegram, which is linked down below in the description. I'd love to have you over there. There's like 2,500 people in there talking crypto all the time. And as well as that, hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll bring you updates as they happen. See you in the very next video. Bye-bye.